is January 28th, Monday, and we are the frozen chosen here tonight. Let's start our meeting with roll call.
Charles Black-Lance,
Here.
Reed Campbell,
Here.
Tom Hagelin,
Here.
Sue Kern,
Here.
Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Bob Nystrom,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need an approval for the agenda as amended. We just added one more recognition is all tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first from Director Nystrom, a second from Director Black-Lance. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Recognitions.
All right, tonight we have 3 fun recognitions where we get to recognize students for doing great work. The first one is congratulations to Forest View 8th graders Henry Hopkins. Henry won the Brainerd Public Schools 6th grade through 8th grade oral spelling bee last week. Henry will compete in the regional spelling bee on February 19th at Sourcewell in Staples. Also, we want to congratulate the Brainerd High School Knowledge Bowl teams. They competed at their first meet of the season on Wednesday, January 23rd. In total, there were 35 teams at the competition, of which 8 of them were from Brainerd. The event consisted of 1 written round and 4 oral rounds of questions relating to curriculum taught at the highest levels in our high schools. Points are awarded for correct answers and then totaled for the day. Of the 35 teams, Brainerd took 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th. Congratulations to those 8 teams. Pretty amazing. And last but certainly not least in the recognitions tonight, it was really fun for me on Saturday night to go to the Legion and for a fundraiser for our cheer team. And congratulations to the Brainerd cheer team as they have qualified for the first time in Warrior history for the UCA National Championship in Orlando, Florida. And so they will go to the state competition at the end of this week and to Orlando for 6 days next week. And so I got a list of their names and I'd like to announce them at this time. Brianna Frazier, Violet Goodwin, Caitlin Capistrant, Rhea Unger, Zach Capistrant, Kaylee Sutton, Amber Russell, Ella Schmitz, Savannah Roth, Amara Ruther, Lindsay Carner, Adrian Stanton, Jordan Curing, Malia Hermeding, and Rachel Aid. Congratulations to the team and to the coaches on a job well done. And I know all the sports that I've been at this year, they are just everywhere this year doing a really phenomenal job. So congratulations to them.
That's great.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now is the time for public input. Is there anybody who wanted to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll go ahead here. We have a building project update with Brandon Kellerman. And,
There's a few other people too.
okay, Erica, and Chris isn't here though. Very good. The initial presentation.
All right, good evening. We will give you an update as far as where Forest View is at this evening. So we've been working on the floor plan for the building, the controlled entrance, and we also have been working on site improvements as far as the parent pickup and drop-off and circulation around that school. So I'll cover that here. So I'll let Tim speak to the site first.
Good evening, Tim with WSN. Lots of discussion with regard to the updates at Forest View that we've taken a look at. We've gotten together a few times with the core group, and I think the consensus that was raised is we would like to maintain the bus circulation on the south end of the building. We believe that with the location of the new Baxter Elementary and the traffic as it is, we'll have less congestion if we keep the busing on the south end. So what is being proposed is to revamp the busing on the south to add an additional 11 stalls for buses. There's currently 11 there. There will be a total of 22, which will accommodate the shifts that we have for buses moving in and out. There won't be any bus drop-off on the north end of the facility. What we'll do is we want to revamp the center circulation for parent drop-off, and the intent is to take away the single access, create 2 access points so that we have a one-way in and a one-way out. And what that will do is it will increase the stacking. We anticipate that we could have stacking up to the end of the parking on the south side, and it would extend all the way out to the road. So this distance is around 850 feet. It's 850 feet. And what the traffic study has indicated is that we would like to see a minimum of 1,200. So in conjunction with that, what we would like to do is turn this north end into the parent drop-off, a second parent drop-off area. And this distance is around the 650 foot in length. So in total, we're going to have around 1,500 foot stacking length for parent drop-off pickup. So we've met that goal. What we would like to do is we would like to create a disconnect from these 2 parking lots to this center parent drop-off access. We don't want to encourage parents to come in and divert to the other parking lots. So the premise behind that is to keep that separation for improved safety for the children. So what will be happening then is, in lieu of that, we will create a new access to this north parking lot. And this location was chosen just because of the visibility, I believe, we'll have along Knollwood. It'll probably be the best location for that drive. What we're in the process of doing is we're having our transportation folks take a quick look at this, make sure there's no unforeseen issues that we've, may have overlooked. The initial indication is that this will be a good scenario. And so again, there was a lot of discussion about having adequate staffing for these exits and entrances for the students. It sounds like they monitor 3 entrances. It'll be the same under this scenario, so it won't require any additional staff. And this hopefully achieves all the criteria as far as busing and parent drop-off pickup. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Lower parking lot will be staff only too, correct, during the school day, I believe, and it'll be signed that way, so there won't be.
You mean the south parking lot?
South
Yeah.
parking lot.
South parking lot is.
We certainly could do that.
Yeah.
We had talked about that, I think.
So, I have a few questions. And, well, let's start off, I guess, with a concern is, right now, as a parent that makes the drop and pick up occasionally for my daughter at the middle school, one of the larger issues is that wraparound right in front of the main entry there, where what'll happen is, and you probably know this, but parents will stop and drop off or visit or jump out of their car, run into the office, and that creates, they get backed up a lot, largely, it seems, because of that. So that's, I'm not seeing that being alleviated. I like the idea of the stacking, the increase of the stacking, but the concern is when it's cold like today or tomorrow, parents are gonna not want to necessarily go all the way around and then come back out and drop Johnny or Janie off on the back end of that stacking. I worry about if that's realistic or not. Most people, I'm concerned, will want to drop off at the center of that horseshoe, cutting that in half. And then how far out parents are gonna be comfortable dropping their children. That's a concern. Another thing is, I did some looking on my own. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that or not, but I did. And a number of schools, and I don't wanna be offensive in any way, but thought this would be a good opportunity to throw it out, is some of the schools, the size of Forest View I've seen is, they have up to 3 or 4 zones for drop-off. And I like that you increased the drop-off zone by moving the bus parking on the north side. My question would it be possible to have another zone added in between the north entrance and then the center entrance? And to possibly bring the parking right along the building there. I went there, and I went around the building a number of times. Actually, I was worried they were gonna call law enforcement on me, because I kept going around and around, trying to look around. But anyway, along that eastern wall of the school, that would increase the drop-off and add another potential zone to the drop-off, if I'm using the term zone correctly. And students could go to the north side and enter where the school bus drop-off is now, or go through the main entrance, but it'd create more drop-off opportunities closer to the school. And to me, that seems more realistic, because that seems to be the issue of trying to get students closest to the building.
Yeah, well, and we appreciate the comments. We're never going to get away from, they want to have Johnny or Susie as close to the front door as they can. You know, we're never going to get away from that. The issue that we have today is this area here currently is the only place that you have for children to be dropped off and the parents to wait. And then there's, the width of the drive lane is such that it's 2 cars wide, so that they can park adjacent to the sidewalk. And then there's an interior circulation lane, so that if there's a vehicle that exits, another one can pull in and take their spot. So with this particular layout, what we'll do is we'll extend that so that the 2-lane width will extend from this location here all the way over to this location here. So it substantially increases that length in which you can have vehicles in line waiting and others passing if they choose to wait there. Again, we're never going to
That
get
is
beyond.
with sidewalks too, right?
Yes.
Sidewalks go that whole length.
Sidewalks are extended.
Correct, so that as soon as the student exits the vehicle, they're on sidewalk. They're not walking through snow and grass and things like that. So that really increases this length. In addition to that
Say,
is,
Tim, maybe before you leave off of that piece, just to clarify a little bit more, because like Charles, I drove that for 10 years. But a couple other things, right now, it's not a double lane in and out, and especially when you get into that bottleneck, you can't get sometimes if you get a little car, you can get around, but it bottlenecks a lot when you get into the upper piece. So this design is intended where there could be a car parked on the right-hand side all the way around, both sides, and you would still be able to drive on the inner side all the way around, correct?
that's correct.
So unlike, now you can't get into, it just bottlenecks behind there, which in my opinion is a big change.
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't know the distances off the top of my head, but it seems to me that the length in this inner circle currently is in that 300-foot range, so it's not real long. That's 10 cars, okay? There's not a lot of room for stacking and drop-off. I think this layout here will double just this existing center lane, and then in addition to that, you will be adding almost another double length of that on the north end. So you're substantially increasing that length, as well as this will not be afforded for busing at all. So there again, you'll have ample room to pull up and exit, and others can come around the outside and pull in. So when you look at this in totality, the length of drop-off that you're going to have is probably going to be increased by at least 4 times. The issue, what we want to avoid is, the issue that we have is we're kind of intermixing bus and parent drop-off and things like that. So from a safety standpoint, we want to make sure that we separate that to the extent that we can. So that's the reason we don't want to necessarily look at trying to have parents drop their children off here as well. So that's kind of the reason we're separating that.
Just gonna say they will anyway.
Well, they
I know
will.
a lot of people will go in that
Yeah.
north thing and drop off there. I mean, but I'm not, I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that.
They're going to go in the south parking lot as well. We aren't going to be able to police every
Well-
movement that they do, but again, by substantially increasing that length, hopefully we'll minimize some of that.
I think we can keep them out of the south
Yeah, and I
parking
think
lot.
on the south one, though, we had talked earlier that that would be a staff designated only and signage, so it would be monitored that way, whereas the other one isn't. I just want to go back to that circle thing. We also talked about that we'd have a right-hand exit lane. That's, again, another bottleneck where there's, we want to have a left and right exit coming out of that main loop versus today, if you're trying to make a left-hand turn, you're really backing up. So I don't know if that's,
Yeah, that's correct. It's hard to see on this scale, but yes, there are two lanes. There will be a left-hand turn lane and a right-hand turn lane,
which
yes.
makes a big difference.
Yep.
Going back to that south parking lot, we did discuss, and I still think that it's valid to look at that as a third zone, as another drop lane, because of it should be limited parking in there if staff is in the,
You're talking about the north parking lot.
excuse me, the north parking lot. I still think that has some validity as another.
I can tell you right now, what I'd tell my wife and what I'll definitely do is, I'm gonna take that north parking lot, and I'm gonna do exactly what I suggested to you. I'm gonna go right up along the building, drop
I'll be right
Olivia.
behind Charles.
Drop Olivia. So I think that's gonna,
As close as you can get.
so the other thing, and I feel bad, this is new to me, but is, what's happening right now, from what I see, is even in the horseshoe that we have right now, and I get what you're saying about the two lanes and being able to pass, but parents don't utilize the U that's available now. They stop as close as they can, or just to a point where the entry is for community education in the gymnasium there. That's as far as they go, and then they drop their kids off and then get on out of there. Even though there's space beyond it coming back out, parents don't go that far. What happens also is, parents right now are going up alongside it on the south parking lot and stacking along there and dropping their kids off into the gym entrance or the community education office. So that's where I believe it's just, the parents are just gonna keep dropping their kids off there.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but when you were just indicating the total amount of stacking space, it was around 1,500, correct? And the traffic study recommended 1,200?
Correct.
So the additional lineal footage of stacking that's beyond that drop point, the main doors at Forest View, that 300 or so feet, is what I would say is the extra lineal footage of space. So there will need to be, from the district standpoint, in talking with the user group over at Forest View, there will need to be something in place by the district in order to have things flow. There'll be a learning curve, basically. Not saying that there has to be someone out there monitoring and, directing traffic by any means, but there will need to be, per se, possibly at open house, when students new to the building, there's gonna have to be some explanation as to, you see two dropping points now. Well, the one to the north is obviously closer to the grades 5-6 wing, and the one to the center or to the east is closer to the 7-8. Now granted, I know some parents have students that are in all grades or will be dropping off multiple children, and they'll have to, figure out what drop point works best for them. But we're hoping by, again, having multiple points of dropping, like you had indicated, that will be a benefit and help alleviate the congestion that's occurring now at one drop point.
Yeah, and, again, we know that there's concessions with all of these different scenarios that we've looked at. And unfortunately, we're a society today that everything has to happen right now. And we're never gonna get around that. So I would agree with you that this is probably not likely the best drop-off location. It's just gonna be how impatient the parents get, whether or not, if they're only using it up to this point, if they're in a hurry, that might force them to go up and use the further areas. I agree, on a day like today or tomorrow, they're certainly not going to use this. But then it's a matter of, it might be a 30-second delay or something like that. Again, we've increased the area that we've had for drop-off and stacking. So you're not gonna have people stacking out here on Knollwood. So that's gonna be a huge safety concern. So again, and if we were to try to accommodate everyone and have stacking all the way around the building, that wouldn't work well. So we just have to try to lay out the best option that we can to accommodate, you know, the things that we can. We're never gonna appease everything.
The final piece that I have is we have a responsibility to respond to our constituents. And I'm just not seeing that that's changing much other than some of the length of the stacking. And I'm concerned about that, whether or not we're really doing our job to respond to their needs of something that's gonna be a little bit better, especially in the front of the school.
Well, I feel, not to argue by any means, that's not what I'm looking to do here, but, you know, one of the primary points of this work that we're doing coming out of this referendum is the safety and security of our children. And so there's, you know, a great vast amount of improvement as far as safety to the flow of this site now in comparison to where we are now. I mean, I guess would you not agree?
No, I
That, I
agree,
mean,
yes.
that's one of the priorities that we were tasked with upon the approval of the vote of the constituents. So that's what we focused on as trying to be our primary redesign of this area.
Right, because the other things you'll see is, I'm sure in your dealings that you've had with the school, you'll notice that people are stacked out here on Knollwood for quite a distance, okay? And that's because they're limited to just one location again. So in conjunction with that, we will have right turn lanes into the school at 4 locations. It'll be this new parent drop-off up here farthest to the north. It'll be this new entry that we put into the north parking lot. We'll add a turn lane at this entry at the front of the school, and there will be a right turn lane for the buses going into the south end of the building as well. So that will increase, because what you'll notice too is as you're in the exit at that front turnaround and you're trying to go left, there's vehicles that are blocking your visual aspect down the road. So that's a huge safety concern. What the turn lane does is it gets those people out of the way so you've got a better visual. So that'll be a huge improvement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
One other concern I have with the design here is, I like the idea of pushing the buses to the south. But right now, what's happening is individuals will leave the roundabout and then go through the parking lot, which is just to the west of the football field, or vice versa, leave that parking lot and then go in towards where the buses are. Are there any plans to put posts or what have you on that path? Do you know which path I'm referring to?
No,
It's the one right alongside to the west of the football field or the track.
you talking up here?
Yep, straight south of there.
Oh, down
So
here?
they'd enter from Mapleton.
Yeah, they come right through that little.
There's like a dirt,
Oh, so
road
they,
with a dirt
they drive
parking lot?
through, they drive through here, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
and I've talked to a few parents whose children that ride bike along there, people going through there, their kids have almost been hit by vehicles going through there. And then right on down, all the way in front of that parking lot, in between the parking lot and the track. But that's another conversation, I'm sure, but
Well, and I guess I don't know how to answer that. Maybe this needs to be marked as staff parking only also, at least during school days or something like that, to try to alleviate that. Yeah, they shouldn't be driving through here, that's,
my understanding is it might be staff that are doing that.
okay.
So both parking lots only have one entrance exit, correct?
Yep.
I like that a lot, to not have the entrance to the parking lots part of the roundabout area. Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Again,
So there won't be any access to the parking lots from that?
from the roundabout.
That'll only be drop-off.
Yeah, I do like that.
Again, we're trying to reduce the conflicts. Yep,
Right.
potential
and,
conflicts.
and like you said,
did, but-
we're never gonna get away from parents using those exterior
change it?
lots. This is just a way to disconnect that so that it makes it more challenging.
I really don't have any problems with parents using the north lot if they end up using it.
And then the parents that stop and visit and run in, I mean, that should be signed or whatever to avoid that.
Yeah, it's an issue at other schools too.
Maybe it'd be different too if, I mean, that should be a no parking zone.
Right.
Right.
Now, then if the north parking lot can be designated more for parents versus staff.
Right.
So if you're going to drop off,
And wanna
Right.
go in
I would,
with
That's true.
wanna
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah, I
I
think
would agree
signage would
with
help a
that.
lot. I'd feel more comfortable with that, yep. So-
I would agree with that in the sense too, with the entrance happening right now to get into this lot. When you are trying to come in and there's stacking occurring back onto Knollwood, it's frustrating if you need to get into that parking lot, but you're not trying to go through and drop your child off.
Right.
And so by having that, as two separate pieces or two separate entrances, I think that will help a lot with the flow.
It will,
Right.
yeah.
I'll be very honest, so I'm definitely using that north parking lot. I like it, it's attractive.
Well, you know, we know that it takes some time to re-educate, because, again, parents are gonna get frustrated. They'll do what's the most simple, but again, this, compared to what we have today, is gonna be a substantial improvement.
quick question.
And you might find that once people get used to this, that one of the other drop-offs will be easier for you, you know, once people learn how to use it.
They're
Right.
different, they're configured differently and.
Yep.
They're configured for drop-off, yeah, so.
Is the user group made up of current parents that drop off Forest View?
The user group is consistent of admin, and we have transportation.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm asking is a user group, are they parents of drop-off, kids that are dropping off? Have they experienced this day after day after day?
Well, I can say that I was a parent that used this, and I used the south parking lot a lot. I'll admit to that. Because you just got tired of waiting, so. But there again, you're choked down, this is gonna be a substantial improvement. Traffic's gonna flow much quicker.
Yeah, it's going to be a great improvement, but if we don't nail it 100%, it's going to be a fail in my mind. So that's why I'm asking, how many, you know, have we asked 15, 20 parents that are active, their thoughts on here? It's going to be better, but,
Right.
man, we don't,
Right.
Absolutely.
we
I
need
guess,
to nail it.
Those people that were part of the user group, we didn't necessarily have designated parents besides those staff that may have been a parent and experienced it. And those staff that are in attendance at those meetings, they see the use of it day in and day out. So we're reliant on their feedback, and they've been very valuable in, I feel, anyway, as part of the group in
I just
giving
think there
us
would be huge
insights.
value in asking
Yeah.
parents that are dropping off, because might hear you might hear 8 out of 10 that say, well, I'm gonna use that north parking lot.
Sure.
Corey, did you want to say something?
I can answer this one. Okay. I just wanted to mention that as we've done whenever you have seen these designs, we will release it publicly on Blueprint 181 tomorrow and include a sky alert to all Forest View families and social media messages to let everyone know that the design is out there and to invite them to give us feedback. We'll use the same format. I'll email you the comments we receive once people have a chance to weigh in.
Okay, so this would go out tomorrow, you think, Corey?
Yep,
Okay.
so we will give the public the same chance to give feedback as we have for all the other designs too. I think this one will probably be popular. I think we might get a comment or two on it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too, is you're going to get a lot of comments, and I think unfortunately, the way the folks are gonna view this is what they're experiencing today. And they aren't gonna have a true sense of how this is gonna function, so, you know, we kinda have to weigh that a little bit as we look at these as well, but, you know, we certainly welcome the comments and the input, so.
Yeah, when we put it on Blueprint 181, we're gonna have a lot of verbiage to explain how
what
it'll
I
work
think.
or something, because just showing this, you don't even know that there's another drop-off spot.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're gonna do that, but
What
can
if
add-
we just
We can
reached
add
out
some
to
notes.
15 parents and
Yep, and explain that the south will just be, teacher parking.
I
and
like
things
that as well. That'd be
Just-
wise.
just ask
Sure.
a dozen or two.
they'll all be home tomorrow and the next day. That would be a good time to get you.
Yeah, because I agree, I like the design better knowing that there aren't gonna be buses in that north, in what's now the north bus parking lot. And I don't know if parents would catch that right away.
Yeah, no, we could certainly add some notes to clarify some labeling on this.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah, that'd
would be really
Yeah,
important.
and we apologize, we don't have the most current version up here. There is a line that shows that it's just parent drop-off on the north, but we'll add some additional notes for clarification before it gets posted.
Great. And I think the parking
color it.
lots, excuse me, go
sorry.
ahead. I think the parking lots too, if it says staff parking.
Sure.
Parent and guest parking.
Yep.
Some of that kind of thing. I think that will help a lot if they can see kind of what the movement should be.
And separate entrances into the parking lot with no entrance from the, whatever we call, kind of the roundabout thing, whatever we call it.
The east drop-off.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I think if you highlight it with a different color on where the,
Yeah, we have the parent drop-off highlighted in red, I apologize.
Color coded would be
Not on
great.
this exhibit, but the
Yeah.
current one is red.
okay.
All right.
Any additional questions on the,
No, it's a major improvement. It'll make a huge difference.
it'll be drastically different, yeah.
Will there be turning lanes like, Tom had talked about in the horseshoe version or portion of it? Will there be turning lanes in the north, parent parking lot there, coming out?
This one
Yes.
here.
We are currently not showing turn lanes there. We have this into our transportation folks. I just want to make sure that they're warranted, you know, there's no sense of putting in turn lanes if we don't. There was a question about whether or not we needed a turn lane on the south bus drop-off area. I question that. It's my understanding that the majority of the busing movements are going to be turning to the right anyway, so does it make sense to go through the expense of putting a turn lane in to accommodate the couple of buses that are going to go to the north, so. This is really close to the final version, but it's not exact, the final version, so we're still exploring those turn lane options, just to make sure, like you said, get it right. We don't want to underestimate, we don't want to overestimate.
Is there a way that we could talk to, hear from 15, 20 parents specifically, or are we beyond that?
No, this is just the preliminary review, and so there's 2 weeks here now in between before we present the final option. So that would be something that we would just need to coordinate with the district.
And the goal is to have our transportation feedback done and completed prior to that. Period, so.
You guys, I might be getting ahead of myself, but is there going to be a paved walking trail that will connect Forest View to the new elementary school? And where would that be?
Well, there is a paved trail. I don't know that we're going to, well, it does go up to the school, so the paved trail follows Mapleton, and there will be a trail along the west side of Jasperwood. So there's not gonna be a straight shot between the elementary and Forest View. You're gonna have to go down to Mapleton and back around, but it will be connected.
I'm just thinking, like when services are shared, where the students might be walking back and forth.
We have had some discussion on that when we were actually looking and working on the traffic study.
Okay.
And there was discussion that lent itself to not leaning to doing that.
We want to discourage having children crossing Knollwood.
Oh, okay.
That's the bottom line, that's the reason that we have that go around, because there are already crosswalks and safety measures in place. There will be roundabouts installed on Mapleton, at least that's the preliminary look. That increases the safety for pedestrians along that corridor, so
Okay.
that's the reason we don't have a direct sidewalk back and forth.
All right, any other
And
questions?
again, you're waiting on Riker to kind of approve all the buses going to the south.
They've been-
No, it's actually,
And so
Yeah.
does Norby.
yeah, they've been involved in all the meetings. I think what Tim's referencing is the traffic consultant that we have working on. This exact layout where we're at to date wasn't one of the exact options that they had run their numbers on, and so we're just having them look at that again.
Right, and, maybe for the benefit of the board, this is option 12. So it's
Or-
not like we've just taken a paintbrush and drawn one thing and we're done.
Right.
We've looked at this extensively. We had busing completely on the west side of the building. We've looked at a lot of different options, and this is the one, I think that as a group, we feel it meets the majority of the goals that we're trying to attain.
One of the things in my late night travels around the building a few times, have you ever looked at staging the buses on the west side there?
Yep.
That was an option we had,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
The concern with that was an option that we were leaning toward as maybe being the preferred alternative, but I think the issue with that you're going to have is you now have all the parents trying to come along Knollwood past that entrance to the front of the school. You're gonna have congestion, and I think we had a preliminary conversation with our transportation folks. In order for that to work, we'd have to have the buses come in and take a ride out. We didn't think transportation-wise that was maybe the best scenario, so that's kind of the reason that one was ruled out. It was our transportation folks with the school that fought hard and said, no, we feel it has to be on the south. So that's the reason where we're at today.
All right,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's just the site. Now
It's
we'll,
warm in here, so you're gonna keep me in here for a while.
all right, so we have also taken a look then at the controlled entrance portion of the main entry to the school. And this diagram just lays out what the standards committee has set up as far as operationally how this entry would function. And so you can see layout-wise, and I'm gonna ask the question, is there another image, Justin, beyond this, or is this just, okay. Sorry. I wanted to make sure if we had another option, or another slide here. So entrance-wise, you'll enter in through these doors just like you do now. So this is the existing vestibule that is there. And then what we're proposing to add on then is to extend it over to the south side of the existing vestibule and connect over to this area of what is an area that is tied to the existing reception area. And so this will create, basically you'll have your primary lockdown point here where they'll come in and then they'll come over to this, actually let me back up one more step. During the morning and afternoon hours, these doors will be open and students and staff can freely flow through those doors. Then when it comes to the point where it's school's in session, these doors will become, these sets of doors will lock, and then you'll come in as a visitor, you'll come over to this door, and you'll be buzzed in through this door to then be checked in at this check-in point. And at this point, if you are clear or cleared, then you'll be released in through here and then can freely flow into the main school portion. And if you need to do anything additionally at the secondary reception desk, you can do that. So that's basically how, and likewise, I guess, to explain, if you're at this check-in point and you're not cleared, then that's an opportunity where this is basically a lock control point, and the only way out is back through here. You would not be released into any area of the building. It's set up, this basically what we've been referencing as a fishbowl, it's set up then to also though have this potential connection to a secondary person to be available if so needed, and that this person would acknowledge that and have connection to that point or to that person if needed, like I said. So that, I think, basically covers the function of the entrance or the controlled
This
entrance.
is common practice in schools that have security systems where they come
Right.
in, get checked in, go through another thing, and then sign up.
Right, that's what we are doing. Other school districts are doing that, and that's what we're implementing on all the schools here in this district now.
What, I was thinking about this after our last meeting, what are a couple of examples that someone would get checked in and then have free reign to the school? Who are they?
Volunteers,
Volunteers? And so,
it's coming in.
would
Parent
they be
coming in.
badged or something?
Yep,
They'll get
yep,
badges.
so,
So they don't need to be escorted then?
no,
You sign in a sheet, and then you say why you're there, and your time in and your time out.
Do they have to clock out?
well, you sign out.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
Signs.
depending
The
on,
paper.
Yeah, no,
right
but-
now it is.
Yeah.
Depending on where the district goes with the technology of the check-in and check-out, that can be done through a laptop too, and done electronically.
And I think they usually give you a name tag, so you have to return that name tag.
Right. And you sign in and
Or a
sign out.
sticker.
Right, yep, or a
You don't have to
badge.
return, so, but anyway. But during the day, this is the only way you'll be able to get out,
Correct.
too. I mean, I'm assuming you can get out the other doors, but an alarm would buzz or something? Or how does that work?
Right,
Yeah, the gym doors in the north entrance for the parent drop-off?
Yep.
Not gonna be locked all the time?
For non-entry, yep. Obviously, all doors are set up for emergency egress, for safety, or for egress during fire or whatever scenario, lockdown, if need be to exit out, so.
So then when a teacher takes their kid outside, their class outside, they have a card or something that
Right,
allows them?
they'll have a
Okay.
proxy card that then, yes, they won't have to walk all the way back around to the front door. Yes, they'll have access with their proxy card.
Yep, okay. It's just a new way of thinking in our district.
So when will visitors be forced to start going through the fish bowl, or what time of the day? Maybe 8:30 or?
Once school's in session, so I don't know, I don't remember when Forest View
When
starts
school's in
exactly,
session.
but yep, once school starts.
But when they're open for the students and whoever, anyone can go through there then?
Correct.
So that you still have that potential.
Has there
Correct.
been any research done or looked at when intruders or armed assailants tend to come into schools? Is it after school's in session or?
No, I don't think there's any specific study on that. There, at least that I haven't come across. If someone really wants to enter into this building, they're gonna do so. And that's with any building. I mean, we're obviously trying to create, again, safety is of utmost importance. And so we're trying to keep that, safety in mind in the sense of not having multiple doors open during the day and keeping one control point. And then by also then filtering that and having a check-in during those school day hours will help. Typically, when you have a scenario such as this set up, you know, a potential person who may look to be causing trouble or, you know, looking to intrude, there's the methods that are set up are help to deter that. And so if they know that something like this is put in place, that will help with just trying to obviously not go there.
And at the beginning of the day, when students are coming, we have teachers and we have a police officer,
Liaison, yeah.
very much active during that time.
Right.
That's their
But yeah,
job.
how many entrances are happening at the same time? With, I don't think there's a policeman at the bus drop-off doors, at the north doors, at the
No,
gym doors, at these doors. You've got
but they do
it
have,
open at that time.
but there are staff.
There are staff.
Yep, yep. And, you know, the district has done a good job to this point without these measures in place to help the staff helping with those different control points, basically.
And the visibility, we have much more visibility with this, right? When they're coming in from, well, maybe we don't.
So
I mean, there's more windows, for those,
yep. So, you know, this is existing. It's basically the same. You're not gaining any additional vantage point by any means. It's, we tried, when we were laying this desk out in this area, we tried to see if there was a way to mirror it, to flip it over here so that you could see.
oh,
Because
yeah.
standardly, you'd like to try to have your desk be able to view in this direction so that you can see those that are approaching your building. But again, just with the space that we're dealing with and ADA clearances at doorways, and there's a lot of doorways happening in that small space. And so this was the layout that was provided. Now, when they come in, obviously, again, this door's locked. And until they get buzzed in, this person can see that person at this point. So it's not that they're approaching them blindly by any means. It's just that this desk right here doesn't have a direct view out to those that are walking into that vestibule until they're just basically right upon that vestibule. But really, when you look at the existing reception desk, that too, when you're sitting here, your vantage point is where the existing vestibule was. There are things that are impeding your view as well.
So there's not a window by that, the yellow in the bottom right there?
Here?
Yeah,
No,
that's not a
that's
window to see?
solid wall.
It is.
Yep,
And that's a supporting wall.
yeah, those are all,
Be a window so that you could see who's coming in?
I'd have to check into that structurally to see.
Okay.
We can look at that.
And the other thing is they have direct access into the, is it the assistant principal or in that office?
Right now, that's what it's labeled, but there was discussion of shuffling.
Okay.
I see the CR is the card reader. What's the SIP? Is that a camera?
Oh, where are you seeing that?
The CR
Oh,
up there?
yep, yep. Yep, that's just another way of,
Yeah, it's not in there.
Currently, or in the plan, do the other entrances, in this entrance where the faculty or staff helps monitor this at entry time in the mornings, are there buttons or emergency buttons for them to push if something occurs?
currently right now, as
Yeah.
the building stands.
Yep. Or
Earl might be able to better speak to that.
in the plan?
Walkie-talkies?
Talking panic.
No, just,
Just
if,
a button.
yeah, because if something happens, you don't want
Panic button.
to start to try to press your phone just to be able to panic button.
Pretty slippery slope. But as far as the other existing doors, they will have prox cards that staff can get in and out, but we haven't talked about having alarms or anything like that at those doors.
What he's wondering though, currently,
Currently.
right now, what is in
Okay,
place
button to lock it.
as far
What
as,
we put in place right now, the temporary system, there'll be a camera at the main entrance, which we have installed already. I think it's up and running now. And one at the community ed and one at the receiving door in the back. So right now, if someone comes and wants to get in, they'll actually push the button on the camera and they'll be seen by, in the back would be maintenance staff, would be the community ed, would be people sitting at the community ed desk. And then they can decide if they want to so let those folks in. Now, if it's somebody that's not related to community ed, they'll direct them back around the front. So that's the way it's set up right now. And I think there are 6 or 7 people that have the availability to see those door cameras on their computer.
But no panic buttons there at all, or no
there's
plan
no
for one?
panic buttons at all, no. But, you know, we do have quite a few 800 megahertz radios, so I'm sure quite a few of the staff have those. So if they have to make an emergency call, they can do that as well. They can dial 911 from their cell phone. There's a number of ways to make a call to if you have to get police liaison officer there immediately. So, yeah, it's kind of they're going through a learning curve with it right now. It'll take them a while till they 100% figure it for us beyond, as all these other schools are gone through and are going through now, to really figure out how this whole thing is going to work. That actually doesn't impede the public's ability to get in the building, but still gives us a pretty good security. There are no 100% foolproof things, but basically this should give us a lot more security than we have.
It
Thank you.
does, I know when we talked about this before, it still seems a bit odd to me where essentially we're going to secure it for 7 hours out of the day. 8 to 3 or something like that. It just, it just doesn't seem right. I look at our own business and we secure it around the clock. You know, so we don't open it at, it just seems odd. And I love the question on the market research, like, well, do we know what we're trying to, who we're trying to protect against? Is it disgruntled parents,
Sometimes.
ex-employee? Is it, you know, do we know for certain what we are trying to protect? We're putting a lot of dollars into it, and
Yeah, I love these efforts, and as a parent, I love the movement towards that, but, to be real, you announce to parents in the community that the school is gonna be locked down from 8:30 to 3 or whatnot, then to me, that's also telling them, well, no point in arriving to do your dastardly deeds after 8:30, you need to be there before then. And I'm not seeing anything that's gonna slow anybody down before that. And that's when the school is at its most uncontrolled, I guess, with students running around and getting to class. And so
Right.
I like what, from 8:30 on, I like what I see. I would just, as a parent, would like to see a little bit more in terms of thought of, and maybe that's not what you're sanctioned to do, but for us then, I would like to challenge us to maybe take it another step further. What are we gonna do while kids are flowing in and anybody else can flow in?
I know that was of discussion again with the core group. Their input was that, again, utilization of staff. It's not going to be a free-for-all, free flow, just because we have put this in place, that the staff are gonna go away. They still will have a part or play a part in the control of that time frame in the morning, because logistically, it could become a nightmare, and maybe that's a harsh word to use, but to get all those kids through doors in a short duration of time when everyone's being dropped off, without having to have basically a checkpoint. There are school districts that are going to that degree, but each district has to make a decision as to how far they want to take that.
By checkpoint, do you mean like metal detectors or
Yes.
something?
Right,
Okay.
yep. Any other questions?
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful when, to say that, staff is there. I don't remember seeing staff like at Forest View, or at the high school. We don't hire staff to be monitors at all these doors. I don't believe so. We'd have to be pretty careful about thinking that that's the case. I think it's just it's wide open.
They may be doing their job, in the sense of inconspicuously, you didn't notice them, but they are, according to feedback from the admin of that building, they do have staff that help monitor the entrances. So I'm just going, again, based off of what they're sharing with us.
And I think it's important that we have staff members when kids are coming into school, out and visible. I think that's very important. So if we don't, we need to fix that.
Sure. Okay.
And that's not you.
No, I get it.
That's us.
Sure.
I think this looks really good. I like this much better than what you were talking about before, going out and around and a little door. And this looks much better and much more, it's going to be more appealing when you walk up to the building.
Okay.
So I think it's good.
All right, so next time we present in a couple of weeks, we'll have some further refined the site plan will be further refined, and then we'll also share an exterior rendering of what this entrance will look like then with the addition changes.
So you'll be looking for approval in 2 weeks as well.
Correct.
And so again, we'll put these on Blueprint 181. This one I think is pretty close.
Yep, very.
But we're going to definitely want to look at what the input is from the public and encourage people to.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Great.
So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Natalie Huff is going to talk to us about property acquisitions.
Hi, good evening. Just a quick update where we are with the Harrison properties. So the ones that have been approved have all been done for the appraisal and the review appraisal. So we'll start presenting offers next week. So that's exciting. The only one that hasn't been finished, it's in review stage, is the corner of Oak, 1601. That's where Trinity was, that she had talked to before, but we're now relocating her into her new salon. So that's another great progress point. Then at the high school, that property is just going under review too, so it's done with the appraisal, just in the review process. And then tonight, you'll be hopefully approving the rest of the property. So that would be the vacant property at Harrison, that little piece, that SARF next to the main building. It would be the two at Garfield and the one at Lowell. And then we'll start the process with them too, so that is where we are. Any questions?
So there's no snags or anything with any of the properties?
So far, everything's going as planned. It'll be nice to get with the people and present the offer so that they can start looking for other property.
Good.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up, approval of minutes. We have the organizational special school board meeting on January 14th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first with Director Campbell, a second with Director Haglund. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the regular school board meeting minutes from January 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we have a first from Director Nystrom, a second from Director Nelson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Now the consent calendar. There's a few hirings on here. And let's see here. Is there a motion?
Also move the approval of the consent calendar.
Second?
Okay, we have a first with Director Nelson, a second with Director Campbell. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Down to new business. For action. The approval of the property acquisitions as presented.
I'll move the approval of the property acquisitions as shown here.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first from Director Nystrom, a second from Director Nelson. Any discussion?
I should ask for a clarification. So the non-listed, that's the one at Harrison, the narrow lot? Okay. There's just no address for it? Oh, okay.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then the approval of the resolution of authorizing acquisition of property and providing relocation assistance, services, and benefits by the district.
And this is for these 4 properties. So it's the resolution then, before we said we're going to approve and move forward with these 4 properties, and now we have to pass the resolution that we can move forward to provide the services and such that we've promised our constituents as we talked about the properties. So we broke them into 2 pieces in how we did it before, and we're doing it the same this time as well, to do the resolution separate of the actual approval of the properties.
Okay,
I so moved.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a first from Director Campbell, a second from Director Blacklands. Any further discussion? I think we need a roll call vote. Janet?
Reed Campbell?
Yes.
Tom Haglund?
Yes.
Sue Kern?
Yes.
Ruth Nelson?
Yes.
Bob Nystrom?
Yes.
Charles Blacklands?
Yes.
All in favor?
Thank you. Next up, the approval of the second and final reading of the MSBA policy updates for 202, 203.2, 204, 210, and 211. Did you have anything you needed to share?
We've
Okay.
had no comments since our last meeting. Again, these are just renewals of these and updates of these policies, and so they're policies that we have.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. We have a first from Director Nystrom and a second from Director Campbell. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimously. And approval of the required annual review of policy 410, the family medical leave.
I'll
Jenny,
move to
did you?
approve, Policy 410, the FMLA.
All right, thank you.
Second.
I'd like to just add, really, the only change to this policy is the date, and this is a policy that we need to get reapproval each year for. So the date has been updated, otherwise it's the same as it has been in the past.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Just a quick question on the, you're saying that it has to be approved every year?
Yep, needs an annual review of the family medical leave policy.
Is that the state or the feds?
Maybe Jen can ask.
There's about 5 or 6 policies that need annual review from MSBA. This is the first of the, 6. Those will be coming.
So the approval of those leaves is all up to the discretion of you and Jenny, or who?
And the school board, but if if they qualify for the Family Medical Leave Act, then we automatically
Yeah,
approve it.
it's not a subjective, they either qualify or they don't.
Correct. Yep. And we approve. We just have to bring them forward through the board and approve them at each meeting.
Any other questions? We have a first from Director Haglund and a second from Director Nystrom. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now we have the approval of the first reading for MSBA policies updates, 303, 402, 404, 405, 406, 408, 409, 413, Exhibit B, and 418, 423, 424, and 430.
Great. As I said at the last meeting, it's kind of fun to have been here this long because many of the policies that we needed 3 readings for, or that are needed a lot of updates or whatever, we have pretty much taken care of during the first couple of years that I've been here. Now, because we renew our policies every 3 years, there's just some policies that we need to update to make sure that they coincide with the Minnesota School Board Association. And as you could tell from both the agenda and also reading through them and from some of the notes that I had in my memo, there are very few changes to these policies. And so these were quite simple ones. What I want the board to do tonight is to approve just the first reading. And if you have any questions between now and the next meeting, we'll approve it at that time. So
Okay.
they're just renewals.
Is there a motion for?
Also move the approval of all those policies you listed.
All right, thank you.
Second?
Thank you. We have a first from Director Nelson, and a second from Director Campbell. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Next up is our informational portion, business services report. Marcy Lord is here with a financial report.
Good evening. In your board packet is the financial report as of December. Nothing really to point out. I did do the calculation down at the bottom, total expenditures. Last year was 36.86, and it's showing 40.41, but if we remove the construction fund, which does not have a budget at this time, it's 36.19, so right on target. And then that construction fund budget will be added with the next revision, which is coming at the next board meeting. Are there any questions?
So will the construction fund be a separate line item too?
It will be under the building construction fund, the 6.
Okay.
Right now,
Oh,
we do show expenditures, but no budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Superintendent Larson, you have
All
a
right.
report for us.
I do have a couple of things that have been going on. As the board is aware, we met last week to talk about the calendar for next year. And we had I have to say, the very best calendar meeting that I've ever attended. It was really nice. We brought forward a couple different options. We showed what a familiar calendar would look like as per if it was just like this year's calendar. And we brought forth a recommended calendar with the adjustments that are needed with the 4 to 5 building projects that are going to be taking place next year. The calendar that we put in your packet tonight is a draft. I'm not asking for any board approval tonight, but I want to talk everyone through it just a little bit because we would like to take action as soon as possible. And I know that Ed Minnesota is looking at this very same calendar as we speak. A couple of the highlights that I'd like to share is that basically the school year, it starts as it normally would at the last week of August. We have the 3.5 days at the beginning of the year to prepare for the school year. Ed Minnesota Conference is in October, Thanksgiving in November. We have the same 2 in-service days that we have within our district. Where this calendar is a little bit different than we might have normally done is in the Christmas or the holiday vacation. We are looking at coming back 2 days on the 2nd and 3rd of January prior to a weekend, which we talked a lot about that. And actually, this year we had a 3-day week coming back, and many people said it was really nice to come back and just have a short week and then be ready to go. And so I think after we talked about that, everybody was really comfortable with that decision. One thing you'll notice is that looking into March, there is no spring break in this calendar next year because we're trying to, our goal is to try to get our students to end the school year earlier so that we have a longer construction period at the front end and potentially at the end of the summer as well. And so what we've done here instead is we built in 2 long weekends, one with President's Day weekend and also over what would be referred to as the Easter break, that there would be a Monday after that break. What this does is it moves the last day of school, which I believe would have been the 3rd of June, to the 22nd of May to do this. One thing that the board had asked is that snow days be built into the calendar, but when we talked about if there are snow days next year, they're kind of nice to have at the end of the year when the students have been finished with the school year and then the teachers are there to get their rooms ready to help us move, take things out of the rooms, store them. We're going to have to do that anyway. And so it was kind of a unanimous idea at that time that we felt that that was the best decision moving forward.
So the snow days during construction will be at the end of the calendar.
End of the year during construction only.
Okay,
Yes.
but then in future years, we'll move them back and incorporate it.
Yep.
Okay.
And one thing I want to say right from the beginning, and I'll say it again at the February meeting, is that we see a change in the calendar, a small change in next year's calendar. The year where it's going to be a really big change potentially to our calendar will be in the year 2021, because we will have 11 buildings being worked on all at the same time that particular year. And so we do have a change here because of the spring break for this particular year. but we're able to meet all of the needs that we have for construction by making that one change. The following year, there may be more changes to accommodate all the building projects, but we do believe that that'll be our biggest year, that the biggest amount of changes will occur. So just thinking ahead that it'll be there, but I would love to answer any questions that anyone has. And also, we won't ask for any approval because we want to make sure that Ed Minnesota and such has looked at this and is also comfortable with this calendar. And we left there the other night, and it seemed like everybody was unanimous that this was the best option for the coming year. And if that brings forward, then I will come forward on February 11th to ask for approval so that we can let our constituents know as soon as we possibly can what the calendar will be for next year.
And this is with 173 instructional
Yep.
days.
This kept the same number of instructional days that we have every year as per contract. The following year, we may have to decrease the amount of instructional days. So, yeah,
You didn't let the kids vote on that spring break decision.
no.
You're going to get out a week earlier, though.
Yeah, they are. And I love the fact that we were able to put in 2 long weekends, and it seemed like everybody was pretty happy about that, so.
I'm new enough to the board, forgive me if this is something you've talked about before, but has there been discussion about, or is this related to in any way of moving away from a spring break in the future, or this is just a one-time deal?
At this point, we're just talking about looking at the spring break right now during the construction phases at this time. I think at this time, we anticipate that it would be reinstated or something that might be more conducive at that time. But the intent this year to eliminate spring break there's nothing in mind to eliminate it permanently. It's just to get us through construction.
If I could just throw out, or a parking lot thought would be, I'd be curious to hear when that's released, or even during or after that year of not having a spring break, what our parents or families think of that. Just with some realities of for my wife and I, we're a 2-income home. My wife and I are both out of the home, and spring break is great, but I think for some, it might lend itself to be a bit of a hardship for some. So I'd just be curious, if we're gonna take it away for a year or go without it, be curious to hear what people think of it afterwards.
Afterwards, I agree. I think that'll be great discussion. And again, we know that we've got 3 more years after this one, and we don't know how it'll affect the 3rd year. That's why Ed Minnesota has been really wonderful about agreeing to a memorandum of understanding. Normally, we have 2 calendars in front of everyone at one time, but they've been really understanding about the fact that we need to take this year by year to see what the needs are each year as we go through this. But I certainly think that that discussion can occur, but that's not the intent at this point. Yeah.
Thank you.
But just for your information, we did talk about that at the meeting last week, and Sue was there, and that was brought up as well. So that conversation has been brought up, so.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Just a couple of other things. Last week also, there were a few of us, Brandon and I had a meeting with a couple members from Baxter, and we're still moving forward, waiting on that appraisal to come back, hopefully February 4th or 5th on the property on Jasperwood. And so hopefully we'll have a report for you at the 11th of February 11th as to where we are with it. And then the last thing is certainly the weather is not cooperating at this point, and as the board is aware and the community is aware, we will not be having school tomorrow or Wednesday because of the predicted frigid temperatures that we are going to be confronted with. And so just and it's something that we're going to definitely have to deal with what that's going to look like. It particularly is concerning right now with the construction, knowing that we want to get out just as quickly as we can to get construction going. And so it'll be a discussion that we're going to have in March is when we know a little bit closer what the winter.
Do we have one snow day built in still or not
We have 2 days, but they were added on.
at the end?
Yeah, at the end. And yet, like we talked the other day, if we decide that they won't be, if the board decides that they won't be student contact days, there's still days that all of our employees will be here. And as far as doing moving and some of those kinds of things, it could be very beneficial to us so that we don't have to hire people for additional days above and beyond to make sure that we are all moved out so that you guys can do the work that you need to do this summer. So, but, yep, this was not part of the plans, what's happened in January, so.
Well, Elaine, from my end, I appreciate the quick and decisive decision on that.
Good.
And I certainly feel that's a student-first decision. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, I can tell you that canceling school is the hardest decision a superintendent ever has to make. And I always say that it's so hard because you feel like you're never totally right, but you can certainly be wrong should something happen. And we're trying to err on the side of safety for our children, and so thank you. And for everyone who's cooperating, because it's an inconvenience for a lot of people to have this happening, so thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you. Future board meetings and committee meetings, January 31st, lunch with Lean at Lowell. February 2nd, the big event at Cragun's. That's this coming Saturday. February 11th is our next regular school board meeting. February 14th, another lunch with Lane at Msba. And February 25th, our second regular school board meeting in February. And you are going on February 27th to the Superintendent's Day at the Capitol.
Yes. Yep, with
That'll be
Richard
good.
Ford.
That'll be good. Is there any other business to come before the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Meeting adjourned.
My shirt for the big event came in today. Quite a